Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Network podcast, brought to you by PlayNFC.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Network. I'm your host, Greg Ambrosius, and tonight is the second night of NFFC Champions Podcast Week. The goal of this week's podcast is to introduce you to our 2025 NFFC National Champions and kind of listen to their history in the NFFC. Tonight's guests are Graig Crawford and Chris Blasi, the winners of our 2025 Online Auction Championship and that $15,000 grand prize. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Greg.
Thanks for having us.
You bet. All right. I know it's been about 8 months since you won your first NFFC national title, but does it seem kind of surreal that you beat 959 other teams to become the Online Auction Championship, Graig? I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, when you frame it that way, definitely. 959 is a big number. But, it definitely was very satisfying to finally take down one of these. We've been playing in this format since you first started it, I think back in 2020. I think was the first year of the OLAX. And we've been, putting in teams, multiple teams every year. And, looking back, we've had several teams where we came so close to getting it done. I think 2021, when I looked back, that year we entered the Monday night game first overall. We had the most points in the regular season. We were first kind of consistently in the first 3 weeks. We entered Monday night. We had I think a 15-point lead on the one team that could catch us, and that team had a kicker. That kicker was Brad Boswell.
Really,
and they proceeded to go stall out every drive at the 30-yard line, and I think he ended up getting, I don't know, five 50-yarders or something, 4 of them. We ended up losing by 2 or 3 points to a kicker, so we got second that year. Fast forward to 2024, I think we entered that Sunday after the Saturday games. We had the actual first and second overall teams that year, and we had a ton of guys left. We had a ton of studs like Barkley, who had a great year that year. We had Terry McLaurin, who went off. We were like, this is our chance. All of our studs laid an egg.
Really?
And I think Gibbs, it's all about having those guys that go off on that last week. I think Gibbs went off, and those two teams that entered Sunday first and second slid down to 10 and 11.
Wow.
So, it's come so close only to have the rug pulled out from under us on the last day. So to finally get one across the finish line was very, very satisfying. It was great.
What about you, Chris? Same thing?
Yeah, I mean, it was super depressing when we lost to the kicker. That was just so painful. We looked the day before at his top score for the year, and it was 12 points, and we were just like, oh, we should be good. And by the third quarter, he was kicking his fourth 50-yarder, and we're just like, are you kidding me? So, but yeah, once we got through, that was so nerve-wracking. This year, I went to an Avs game instead of watching the Monday night game. We were up, 30 or 40 points, and I went to an Avs game and turned off my phone, didn't want to know anything, got done with it. I had calls from Crawford, called him back, and he was elated, and I so happy. I'm so happy to get across. So.
Yeah, definitely. It's not easy. I said it with Michael Edelman. He's been playing with us for 23 years. We put him in the Hall of Fame in 2013, but he had never won a national title. And he said the same thing. What a relief to finally get one of these, being so
absolutely.
close. So,
absolutely.
All right, Graig, you guys not only won the overall title last year, you had 4 teams that finished in the top 10 overall. You finished 1st, 7th, 9th, and 10th overall in the Online Auction Championship. I mean, do you guys partner on all of these or not? Or some?
We don't. And actually, I think we had 1st, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. I think Chris had a solo team at 8th. So last year, if my math is correct, I think we partnered, Chris and I, in 12 of these. So we partnered in 12 OLACs. Most of them 150s. We had a 250 and a 500. 7 of those 12 made the overall. So we kind of had 7 bullets in the overall. So we were excited about that. 3 of our partnered teams ended up in the top 10. Of course, the one that took it down. I had another one solo that was in the top 10, and then Chris had one solo with his son. So I think together we had 5 of the top 10. So, things just broke our way last year. It ended up being a really good year. Yeah.
So when you do these online auction championships, Chris, you say you usually go over to his place. I mean, you guys are always together when you do these, correct?
Oh, for sure. We've tried doing them apart,
Yeah.
and it's just hard. When you're in the same room together, dirty looks can be read. If someone's hitting you, get in, get this player. So it just makes it a lot easier if you're in person and you're able to work together on it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you guys said you live pretty close to each other, correct, in Colorado?
Yeah, we're just a few miles apart. That 5-minute drive, 5-minute drive, 10-minute bike ride, if you want to do it that way, which I never do. But yeah, we're not too far apart. Yeah.
All right. So having 4 teams in the top 10, or 5 actually, is just insanely good. Did you have some of the same players on these teams? Was it similar strategies?
Yeah.
I mean, what led to the success?
Yeah. So I think, 3 strategies, some of these are specific to the year one, because we start drafting, Greg. We always get in that first OLAC that you offer.
Yeah.
We're always in that. We like being in that one. We like kind of setting prices. You can get some big time bargains being in those early ones, but we get a feel for that in that first month of where pricing is at, and that helps us develop our strategy. But I think last year there were 3 key strategies, right? And one of these is just kind of overall. We like to zig when others zag, right? So especially in the auction. So last year there was a ton of money being spent at receiver, right? There was a bunch of receivers going over $40, a bunch of them, and a few over 50. So we pivoted away from those receivers. We didn't get any of those guys over 40. We built our receiver room for guys generally under 30. And then use the savings then to buy up at running back, tight end, and quarterback. So we like to, go where the money is not going and try to find value. So zig when others zag. We felt that last year elite tight end was the way to go. So we had and we'll talk about this later. We had a lot of shares. We were overweight on a couple guys, one in particular, Bowers and McBride, way overweight on McBride. We just felt that there was some value to be had there. And then we felt that you either went elite quarterback if you could, or elite running back. That's kind of like where we went. We wouldn't do both, but we do one or the other. So that was kind of our basic strategy, not going after those high-end wide receivers, getting value in that teen to low 30 range at receiver, going after an elite tight end, and either spending up at either elite QB or elite running back. And that was, we kind of developed that strategy by, spending the first month or 2 trying different things out. And then we'd review the teams and what do we like the best. So,
yeah. I was going to say, Chris, is it? It's easy to say, yeah, we had the same strategy on this, but there must be some headbutting to. No, we really need to get a good elite wide receiver. I mean, was there some of that last year?
Yeah, I think we always talk through it, right? And what we do is we'll construct our teams and really look at them ahead of time and kind of have an idea of what we're trying to do when we go into the draft. We're both very similar in the sense that we're looking for, values. Like we both understand when any player comes on the board, I can pretty much tell you the AAV for that player. Right. And so as soon as you know that, a lot of people tend to stay around that range, but you also have to know what are you willing to spend on that player and what represents a discount. So no, we don't really butt heads too much. We kind of, it's funny. We manipulate our strategy from May through about August. And then we really look back at the teams we've drafted and really try and figure out what do we like and what have we done well. And then we start focusing on that for the bigger drafts, the 500s, the 1600s in Vegas.
Yeah, like you said, the average auction values are right there in the auction room. They're right on the player card, right? Like you said, you guys know what it is, but most people do. But if you don't, it's like, oh, his AAV is 18. Then all of a sudden you see 16, 17, 18. Then it stops, right?
Yeah.
And if you identify that, listen, this is a $22 player, you're not afraid to go up to 20, right?
Yeah. But another thing too, that the AAV doesn't always tell you, Greg, is like recent trends, right? Things can move, right? The players move when they're, especially now that teams are in camp and you have all these Twitter highlights. Like you may see somebody's AAV at 18. They may be really more like a $23 or $24 player right now, because some news came out, right? So there's more to it sometimes than just the raw AAV, because that's aggregate over 3 months of drafts.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Like a Malik Neighbors is a good example right now.
Neighbors.
He's all over the
Sure.
place, right?
Yep.
So, all
Yeah.
right. So for people that don't know, we started this online auction championship, like Craig said, in 2020. Once we had perfected the online auction software, and plus we were working on it for 2-3 years with the Fanball team. We didn't have an overall grand prize that first year because we wanted to make sure everything worked
Yeah.
before we really decided to do an overall. We didn't know how many leagues we'd have, how many teams we've had, but that first year was very exciting. So it's only a 150 entry fee. Like Craig said, we do have a 250 league. We do have a $500 league, but most of them are 150.
50.
Last year, we finished with 960 teams. This year, we're going to easily top 1,000 teams. I mean, I think we're going to max out around Labor Day weekend or so. It's just been really, really good. Craig, I know you do multiple drafts, live auctions. Multiple live auctions. You also do the online auction. This isn't for a plug, but our online auction software is the best, and our damn live auctions are the best, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll get into that, but yeah, absolutely, hands down. And why? For our money, when we're playing in these higher stakes leagues, not in our home leagues, we prefer auction. We think that's the way to go. And there's 3 reasons that I think I like auction. I mean, first and foremost, the draft is so much fun. The draft is way more entertaining, way more engaging, right? You've probably seen a few snake drafts over your days, Greg. Maybe a few thousand just this year. They can get chalky. They can get very chalky, and you make your pick and you wait and you have a guy you want, and then of course somebody right before you snipes your guy, and you're like, what do I do now? You're engaged in an auction. You're engaged potentially in every single pick, right?
Yep.
The draft order is just your nomination order. You can be engaged on every single pick versus a snake. You make your pick and you wait, right? You may go in and it's unpredictable. You may go into a draft thinking you're going to get this guy because his AAV is 25. You think, oh, well, I can get him for 26 or 27, worst case. Well, in an auction, it takes 2 to tango. That's all it takes.
Yep.
If there's 2 guys that like a player, that 25 can easily become 33. Right. So it's so unpredictable. You have to constantly adjust based on where players are taken, who is left, where are the tiers at, how much do I have, how much do the other players have. It's constant adaptation. It keeps you on your toes. We love that. Right.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to mess up a snake draft if you have rankings. The wheels can come off in an auction in a hurry if you're not managing things well, right? So we love that. It's more engaging, more entertaining. Secondly, you can build your teams, Greg, in ways you cannot do in a snake draft.
Yeah.
And I told Tom this when I came on, back in the winter, came on the Sirius XM show with Tom, and I said, if you go back to all of your snake drafts last year, I'll bet you a Dr. Pepper, Greg, that you will not find one snake draft that had both Bijan and Gibbs on the same team.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
In an auction, if you want Bijan and you want Gibbs and you want to put a Jamar Chase cherry on the top, you can do that. You can have 3 first-round guys, right? The rest of your team's gonna, be interesting, but you can have 3 first-rounders. Vice versa, you could have no first-rounders. You could build your team off guys that are, second, third, fourth round. There's so many different ways to construct your roster that you just can't do in a snake draft because you have to have a first round pick. You have to have a second round pick. So we love that you can build your teams in ways that you can't construct a roster in a snake in a traditional draft. And then last, you can get your guys. You're not stuck to a draft order that you are in a snake. If you're pick number 6, you're not going to get Bijan or Gibbs, right? In an auction, that doesn't matter. That's your nomination order. You can go get your guys. So if there's guys that you like and you're willing to pay, you go pay. So, for anyone listening, if you haven't tried the auction format, these online auctions, the software is great. They're so fun. They're so entertaining and engaging. And it's just really, I think it's the way that fantasy football should be because guys are going for what their price should dictate, right? So we just love the format.
Yeah, Chris, I want to say one thing is managing your money is the key, right? And like one of the mistakes that new people do is they don't want to get rid of their money, right? But then all of a
Yep.
sudden, two people have too much money and they're overpaying for second tier people, third tier people. So, I mean, you don't want to spend it all on two first rounders, but you also don't want to hold on to it, correct?
Yeah.
Totally, yeah. It's one of the things that Greg and I often smile when we look at the board and we see somebody with a max of $50 and we're down to $15 players. It's like, you do want to spend your money, you want to be aggressive. You kind of have to read the room, right? Some drafts are going to come out and they're going to take their time and they're not going to be aggressive. Other drafts, I mean, every player will go over AAV. And so we have different strategies for every type of environment, right? And we start thinking through it and determining what we get. And then, at some point you've got to make a decision and you've got to go get the players that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Like you guys said, you had several teams together in the Online Auction Championship round. Greg, you had 18 total auction teams with yourself and other people, plus with Chris. You won 5 league titles. You had 5 runner-up finishes. That's 10 teams in the championship round. I mean, how cool is it? That's what you're playing for, right? Is to have enough shots at the title, and you had 10 of them last year. Talk about that.
I always joke with my wife that the first Sunday of the NFL season is like Christmas morning when I was a kid, right? Sitting, at the Park MGM Sportsbook. Oftentimes we're out in Vegas with you guys. But, I love it, right? And for Chris and I and many of my friends that do this, it combines our love of sports with our love of data, right? We know enough about sports and data to be dangerous at both. But, having so many teams in made those last 3 weeks pure entertainment gold.
Yeah.
And that's why we're doing this is entertainment, right? With a chance to win a little money, but it's entertainment, right? That makes you love watching those games on Sunday morning, sitting down and having that many chances. Those last 3 weeks, especially the last week, was just so much fun. It was such a wild ride. So, yeah.
Well, like I said, Chris, when you get to that championship round, that last week, the last game, is it enjoyable, like Greg is saying, or is it so stressful that I wish I wasn't doing this damn thing?
You know what? My strategy, which is slightly different than Greg. Greg watches everything. I think he watches the scores. I literally don't look at scores at all throughout the year. The only time I start looking at things is when we get near the end of the year and we're trying to figure out how to get teams into the playoffs. And so I'm just trying to build teams that are going to be as good as they can possibly be to get in the playoffs. So when I get to that final week, I enjoy the games. Like I don't look at the scores. I don't even think about it. Yeah. And then because your teams and which ones had a shot at it. And if somebody's going off. That Chicago San Fran game was insane because I'm just watching, the first touchdown to McCaffrey is a pass from Purdy. Well, we had Purdy and McCaffrey. So suddenly you're off to a really good start. And then it just kept going. And then finally when Purdy hits Juwan Jennings for that 40-yard touchdown at the end of the game, he was the last piece where it was just like, oh, wow. Like we really have a good shot at this. And so then you kind of sneak a peek at the score and you're like, oh, we're in good shape.
You're in good shape for sure. Yeah. All right. Let's hone in on this championship team. You drafted it on August 9th. Yep. You won your league title by almost 150 points. So you entered the championship round 17th out of 190 teams. So 190 teams made the championship round, which is weeks 15, 16, and 17. You moved up to 5th place. You scored 203.15 points in week 15. You had another team that was actually 2nd overall ahead of this team that eventually won. So talk about how you're feeling with 2 teams in the top 5 and the other one looking really damn good.
Yeah, it's interesting. We didn't have, of all of our teams that made it in, we didn't have a single one with Pitts, right? And as we know, week 15, Pitts went absolutely bonkers. Yeah. So we were kind of behind the 8 ball there, but all of our teams had a solid week 1. We weren't, like you said, 17th there. We weren't up at the very top because we didn't have Pitts, but we liked where we were. And that's why we love this format too, Greg, this 3-week total point format. Mm-hmm. We love that, right? It's not a head-to-head deal. 3 weeks total points. Our teams had a bad week too. pretty much across the board. We slipped down. A bunch of teams slipped way down, So we kind of entered that last week. We knew we had a lot of chances. We liked our players. We liked our matchups, but, we needed them to go off. So, we had a couple teams in particular that had different roster constructions that we liked. One of them was built around CMC, the one that ultimately won it. And then another one was built around Smith and Jigba. That one was up there as well. So we knew, just looking at it, hey, we're still within striking distance, right?
Yeah.
We had a bad week too, but it's a 3-week deal. If we have a good last week, we have a chance. And we knew that different constructions here with a few key core players on each that are that we built our teams around. We liked our chances. We loved our matchups. Looking at the matchups, especially that Bears 49ers game. I think it was the Sunday night game. That game was crazy. Just tons of scoring. We had 3 Niners on the team that won it: CMC, Purdy, and Juwan Jennings. That game, I think we got like 90 points out of that game. Our players in that game that delivered so many points on a Sunday night, and that put us in a great spot going into Monday. So we knew going into the last week we had chances, and things just went our way on that Sunday night game. So we went into Monday night thinking, all right, is this our year? We've come so close before. This may be our year. So
like you said, that Kyle Pitts game in week 15, I believe that was a Thursday night game. So if you didn't have any Pitts, you're just sitting there defenseless, right?
He put up like 50 points. We're like, really, how do we do this? Like 50. We didn't have any shares of him, but it ended up working out.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So like you said, week 16 was kind of low scoring for everybody. You had 175.85 points. You actually were in 4th place with this team. It jumped over your other team. But yet, like you said, you had a big week 17. Let's just talk about it. 45.95 points from Brock Purdy, 28.10 from Christian McCaffrey, 25.9 from Chris Olave, 23.6 from Trey McBride, 19.9 from Michael Wilson. Like you said, Juwan Jennings caught that touchdown pass. So, I mean, just Purdy and CMC alone combined for 74.5. With Jennings was like 90. So, again, just talk about the emotions of that game. I mean, Chris, like you say, just like a pinball machine, and you're there doing all the levers.
Yeah, for sure. The game started and Chicago had a long touchdown, right? And so, or no, it was a pick six. Purdy threw a pick six to start, and I was just like, all right. you usually don't say all right, but in fantasy football, you say all right, because what does that mean? It means that this team's now going to have to work to catch back up. And that's how you get these high scoring games. So even though Purdy started with a pick, wow, he came on and like I say, it was an insane game where you just kind of watch it. And we've been on the other end of that. We had Burrow and Chase beat us in 2021. That brought that guy close enough where Boswell could finish us off. So it's, We've seen it, and we've been on the not so fun end, but man, it's fun when you're on the good end.
No, the 2 previous years in the primetime, teams jumped from 47th to 1st to win the primetime, in 2023 and 2024. So that week 17, these last couple of years have been unbelievable. We did talk to you guys about the strategy of last year. You identified where there were some bargains and such. So let's just look at this championship team. And then we can kind of talk a little bit about this year, what you're seeing, and maybe you're not seeing the same thing as you saw last year. Don't want to give away your strategies, but let's look at this championship team. So you built it around CMC for $45. Talked with Michael Edelman yesterday. He had the 9th pick and built it around CMC as well. I mean, $45 today seems, that's a good price, but that was risky last year because the year before he hardly played with injuries, right? So talk about the thought of getting him for 45.
Yep. And he wasn't our highest owned player by far, right? He was not our highest owned player. I think we had him on about a third of our teams.
Okay.
We knew though that we wanted shares of him. We wanted shares of him because we knew if we got the fully healthy season-long CMC, he's a fantasy MVP, right? Just he puts up, he's so involved in the offense. Obviously, last year, he completely bounced back. played all 17 games, and ended up, the highest non-quarterback scoring player. I think he averaged about 25 a game. So he was worth the risk on a third of our teams.
Mhm.
He wasn't our most overweight player. He was not by any means. That was McBride and Olave. Olave, he's a guy that we like to classify as last year's bum. Last year's bums, Greg, where they're stud players. They've performed in the past, but for whatever reason, they didn't do it the year before. Typically injury.
Yeah.
But his injury was one that we felt he could bounce back from. It wasn't an ACL. He had some concussion issues. Yep. You take a risk there, of course. But here's the deal: the risk on Olave, Greg, cost us $12 or $13.
Right.
It didn't cost us $40. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's a risk that if it didn't pan out, wasn't going to kill us. And so we thought he was our. I think we had him on 50% of our teams last year. And I think we ended up having McBride on like 60 or 65%. We think, the strategy wise in these auctions, understanding pricing early when you're in these things. If people are not spending in that first 10 picks, then we'll, when it's our turn to nominate, we'll throw out, one of the higher end guys and see if we can get them cheaper. Right. Yeah. We feel it's important both last year and this year to get the markets, to gauge the markets on quarterback and tight end early too. Our quarterbacks priced up, priced down, our tight ends priced up or priced down. Get that gauge early so you can adjust that strategy. And, we like to spend, on our starters, we spend between 180 and we're talking with the flex. So those top starters, about 180, 185 max, but we like to be in the right around 180. On our starters is what we like to do, which leaves us about $20 for our bench
for 10 guys. Yep. I think that's a strong strategy. I like that as well. 180. Yeah. I mean, you can't believe there's a lot of good $2 and $1 guys at the end, right? So people who are saving too much, 7, 8, you don't need that at all. So, hey, okay. So let's talk about this team again. CMC 45, Trey McBride 26, Breece Hall 25, Devontae Adams 24, Terry McLaurin 19, Travis Hunter 12, Chris Olave 12. Olave is the home run hit. But Chris, what else did you like there?
Yeah, so I actually remember that day we drafted that, honestly, because we were thinking we needed to get a 49ers team just because of their schedule. Like, it was such a nice schedule last year. And so Jennings was kind of injured on and off during the preseason last year. Mm-hmm. So we were able to get him at like between 3 and 6, I think, somewhere in that range. He was super cheap. And so we added him and had Purdy, and then we had CMC. So that was kind of the basis. And then Olave and McBride were almost a standard on all our teams. Olave was such a slam dunk at $11, $12. Yeah. And so, and then after that, it's all about getting talented players. And then, there's luck to anything, right? Sure. So eventually you have to have luck, but you want to put yourself in a good position where you have enough players. Yeah. Michael Wilson was one that we picked up off waivers. So it's not the draft necessarily. Yeah. You also have to really work waivers well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, waivers haven't been that plentiful the last couple of years, but Michael Wilson was certainly one that you could. Greg, I wanted to ask you, you decide on this team to hold back on quarterback spending. Like you said, you're either in on it or you wait. $2 on Brock Purdy, $1 on Trevor Lawrence. Talk about those bargains, but then talk about this year, because quarterbacks are even further devalued this year. My goodness.
So this team, once we spent up at tight end and running back, once we did that, that automatically, just having drafted enough, we knew that when we did those two things, we had to pivot down at quarterback to build that balanced roster that we like. So, we looked at who was there, and Trevor Lawrence. We love that Liam Cohen was there, right? They got a new coach, a very offensive-minded coach, and Liam Cohen. We loved that. We thought that he was going to, bring out the best in Lawrence, and we liked the weapons that he had around him. Obviously, Brian Thomas didn't perform, but, they had a bunch of receivers. You had Thomas, you had Parker Washington, you had our boy from CU, Travis Hunter, our CU Boulder boy. Both CU fans, at least I am. Yeah. We love Travis. Unfortunately, he got hurt, but we like the situation. We like the coach. He made a lot of sense. We liked Purdy because, again, great coach, good weapons around him. Some of them got hurt, right? And Purdy got hurt. So
Yeah.
Purdy sat on our bench most of the season. Actually, we picked up Sam Darnold on this team, and we rode him for 5 or 6 weeks while Purdy was coming back to health. But we held on to Purdy because we looked at that. We're like, if this team just gets in, right? And we like to look ahead, right? If this team gets in and we were doing well in our league, now we got to start looking at that weeks 15, 16, 17. We looked at Purdy's schedule. We're like, we're holding on to him. We're waiting for him to come back, and it paid off, right? Yeah. So, yeah. Quarterbacks this year, it is crazy this year. Last year, there were 6 or 7 guys, Greg, as you know, going over 15, right, at quarterback, and probably 3 or 4 going over 20. This year, there's only one guy whose AAV is over 15. That's Josh Allen. Everybody else is below that. So it's such an interesting year at quarterback. I mean, generally, we like getting one of the – we don't have a single Allen yet. I don't think we do. But, what we like is getting one of these stud quarterbacks like a Lamar, guys that could put up 500 points, Lamar, Burrow. If they go under 10, and they go under 10 somewhat consistently, if we can't get one of those studs under 10, then we just pivot way down, and we'll spend $4 or $5 total on quarterback. That's just the way the auction rooms are going this year. Now, we anticipate that changing in Vegas. Obviously, we know what happens at live auctions. Quarterback values seem to go up a bit. So we may have to adjust a bit in the live auctions, but for OLAX, it's an interesting year at quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. Chris, I mean, like Burrow might go for 11. Lamar sometimes goes for 10, but I mean, it's possible that Allen is the only double-digit quarterback going off the board in auctions right now, right?
Yeah. It started out early. Drake May was a little bit higher to start, but then just as the years gone on, Greg and I, every draft we'd come in and we'd almost always have we're gonna go $2 and $2. We're gonna have like $5 max at quarterback, $6 max, no problem. And then Drake May would be there for $8, and we're just like, or Burrow's there for $9. It's like, and so you end up spending your money there. And the nice thing is it's an auction, so you just adjust. You just figure out what does that mean to the rest of our roster and make it work. So
you get somebody for 8, then you just get another backup for 1, so you spent 9 instead of 5. You're okay there. So let's talk about the kickers and defenses. Do you guys try to get a $2 one, or you stream both of them?
Nah, we typically would stream both of them. I mean, we're definitely not paying $4 or $5 for the Dallas kicker, Aubrey. We go for $1. We kind of like the free look sometimes too, but we go for $1 and we stream. We ended up picking Seattle's D up off of the waiver wire last year on a bunch of teams, because you get into bye week situations and people unload players. So because of that, we like spending $1 on them. Those positions are very unpredictable year to year too. So especially defense. So now we just go $1. We may go 2. I think we went 2 the other night on Houston's D, but never more than that. Typically $1 on each, and we'll stream.
Well, if you get Houston's D for 2, that's a pretty damn good bargain.
Yeah, we were happy with that. We said we'll spend 2. Somebody goes 3, fine, and we got them for 2. We took that.
All right. So I said before, we've had 6 years of the Online Auction Championship. We've had 6 different overall champions. Do you think this is a tough one to repeat? Can you guys repeat on this one?
Man, it is a tough one. I mean, it's going to take a little skill and a lot of luck. Looking at these boards this year, Greg, it's tough. Like Blasi and I are looking at this. It's tough. Like those values that we saw last year are harder this year when we're looking at these boards. But, we have a few players that we're overweight on. If they perform and stay healthy, we may have a shot. But, you need your guys to stay healthy. We think when we look at it, we think the draft is about 40% of your season. We think the waiver wires is about 40%. How you manage that, and then starting lineups is 20. So, we're getting about half of our team right now in the drafts, and we think then the other half is going to come from, managing the waiver wire well and your starting lineup decisions. So, hopefully we can do that. Hopefully our players stay healthy. We may have a shot. It's going to be hard to get 1,000 teams, but
it's tough. That's a lot of teams, but you get hot in weeks 15, 16, 17, it can happen. So, all right, let's just talk about your history. Greg, I looked up yours. You started in the NFFC in 2012. You joined a Las Vegas live auction. How long had you been playing fantasy football before? Were you and Chris playing together? And how the hell did you ever find us anyways?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been playing fantasy football with my college buddies in the mid to late 90s, right? We started a work league in 2000 actually, that still exists today. It's been going, this will be year 26 for that. So, we've been playing fantasy. We both love sports. We're both kind of data type people. So it's perfect for that. I found out about NFFC listening to Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio one day. I think it was 2011. The ad came on. Hey, try your luck in Vegas, and and I started looking it up, and I saw you have this auction format. So I started researching it, and I'm like, hey, from a person who likes analytics and who likes that, this is perfect. So I made the trek out to Vegas, and I'll tell you what, Greg, I haven't made this. I went out there solo. There at the time there weren't any other ways to practice auctions.
Yeah.
So all I had was just some values, and I crunched some numbers on my own. But to show up in one of your, I put the I don't remember what the price point was at the time. Maybe $1,200, $1,500.
Yeah, $1,300 I think probably back then. Yeah,
so I dropped the $1,300 down and flew out to Vegas the morning of the draft, and I haven't made that mistake since because my plane was delayed an hour.
Yeah.
I land with an hour to spare. The draft was at Bellagio, so I hop a cab, and of course hadn't been to any of these, and it's Bellagio. It has a massive conference center.
Yeah.
I think it took me about 30 to 45 minutes just to navigate the conference center.
Yeah.
I showed up to the draft 2 minutes to spare, right? And sat down and was flustered, but I think held my own that year. I think I ended up cashing. I don't remember my exact place, but cashing, had a blast, had so much fun. I was hooked. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Such a fun format. And, since then I've recruited many more of my friends to join me across the years, but I found out about your product through Fantasy Sports Radio on Sirius XM.
Yeah. Nice. Chris, when was the first time you came to Vegas with Greg?
Well, I was there way back in 2012 or 13. We did a competitor snake draft, so different, but we that was not the best experience. It was okay. My computer died halfway through the draft, so I did everything from the top of my head. Yeah. So that was a little difficult, but it was fun. But kind of have always been drafting, like Crawford said. We've worked together since '98, so we've been drafting. We started drafting together in NFFC. Crawford kind of was like, "Hey, this auction stuff's really cool." We started doing it in 2020, and we might be addicted. I'm not sure. But when the little number goes to 7 or 8, we're just like, oh, it's going. We gotta get in. So yeah.
I like it. I like when people get addicted to this stuff. So, do you guys only do football, or do you dabble a little bit in baseball as well?
I dabble in baseball with a good friend of mine, Mark Winoker. He's another one that I recruited many years ago. Actually, he was my first recruit to your product from Denver. He lives actually in Fort Collins. He and I worked together, and I said, "Hey, you got to try this out." So I convinced him to travel out to the desert with me. I don't know, probably 10 years ago, and he had a blast. And since then, he's become a longtime player in both football and baseball. Yeah. He actually is really engaged in baseball. Yeah. I'll dabble in baseball if I can partner with Mark, because he's willing to put the massive amount of time into managing the teams and managing the waiver wires, and devote his Sunday to waivers. Yeah. I can devote my Sunday to the golf course, and it works out. I'll pay for the entry, Mark. We'll split any winnings as long as you're willing to manage it. Baseball is great from an analytics perspective. It's even better, right? It's just, it requires a lot of time. I enjoy doing it with Mark, but I just don't do it as much as football. Football.
Mark brought his son a couple of years ago, and he was really a sharp kid too.
Yeah,
and, I could tell he was definitely hooked as well. All right, I don't want to pick your brain about draft picks or strategies. I mean, we kind of talked about a lot of things already, but you guys are both Denver Broncos fans, I assume. So let's just concentrate there. Would this team have made the Super Bowl last year if Bo Nix was healthy?
Absolutely, hands down. We got screwed by Bo Nix going down and Mother Nature. It took Bo Nix going out and Mother Nature. I mean, we're here in Denver, and many of our friends. Chris, you were probably at the game.
I was at the Buffalo game the week before.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, third quarter,
Yeah.
it's clear.
Yeah.
Right? Started the day clear. Within 20 minutes, it went from completely clear to all-out blizzard,
Yeah.
and which completely changed the complexion of that game. So, yeah, Nick's healthy, and Mother Nature didn't come to the rescue. I think the Broncos win that game hands down, and probably had a good shot at winning the Super Bowl, at least making it a more entertaining game than it ended up being.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's talk about Nick's. Chris, he's going for like $3 right now in auctions. You guys have any shares of him? Do you think he bounces back? I mean, it was a serious injury at the end of the year. Is he going to be able to bounce back, you think?
Yeah, it definitely was. We were on our way home from that Buffalo game, and we heard it on the radio, and it was really depressing. But yeah, we definitely have some shares of Nick's. That price point is a pretty good price point for anybody, right? I mean, that's kind of what we got Purdy for the year before. Like Nick's, because he runs, he's multifaceted as far as both running and throwing. All indications are that they're gonna speed up this offense. So they passed the most of all the teams in the NFL last year. So if they speed it up even more, I think you have to take that gamble at that price point.
Yeah, definitely. Greg, how about the Denver backfield? You got Dobbins there. You got R.J. Harvey. They're both only going for $6. You got this rookie, Jonah Coleman. He's going for $2.
Yep.
Any of them bargains? Any of them values? Any of them worthwhile, you think?
Yeah, I think Dobbins or Harvey. We're getting shares of both. We don't have any Coleman. We think the backfield is going to be pretty much centered around Dobbins and Harvey. I think we have a little more Harvey than Dobbins. But yeah, I mean, I think they're both values at $6. And, if one of them goes down, now you have lightning in a bottle, right? Dobbins has, unfortunately, the history of injuries that have plagued him his entire career. Who knows what he would have been had he not had all these injuries. But he's going to be back this year. We like Harvey of the two, but I think they're both definite values at $6. I mean, again, if they don't pan out, it doesn't kill you, right, at that price point.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Chris, how about Jalen Waddle, right? He's joined this team. There's a lot of positive from him. Stay healthy again. He's going for $25. You guys in or out on Waddle this year?
Definitely in. Our shares are a little cheaper than that because we were in on him early because we were excited for him. I think he fits the Sean Payton offense, like a glove, and he's going to be the number one, we feel like. So, yeah, definitely, like I say, with the picking up of pace of the offense, I mean, and he, man, if he plays 80% of snaps like he has in the past and can avoid injury, that's the hard part with Waddle, right?
Yep.
I mean, he's a $35-$40 receiver. So
yeah. All right, Greg, how about Cortland Sutton going for only $7? I think he's making more than that with the Broncos, if I looked at his contract correctly. Pat Bryant going for $1. A lot of buzz about Pat Bryant right now. Are you in on either of those two guys?
Yeah, I think, Cortland Sutton's a great wide receiver for candidate, right? Like that flex play for $7. He's he scored 230 points. We had him on the team that won the 2,500 live auction last year, and he was a solid player on that team. Mm-hmm. So I think you can't go wrong at $7 for a guy whose floor is probably 200 points, right? That should be his floor. Pat Bryant, man, the buzz out of camp being here in Denver, we get all of the local news. The buzz is the hype is real on Bryant. He's a physical specimen, very athletic kid, young. I think he's our next Cortland Sutton. I think Sutton probably has one more year in Denver, and then Pat, he'll probably pass the reins to Bryant here. So yeah, for $1, absolutely, you got to get You have to get dollar players, right? Typically, we like to have 5 or 6 of them. He is on the short list of guys that we target for that $1 that we got to spend at the end of the drafts.
All right, Chris, tight end, Evan Ingram, $1. We've all been disappointed by him before. Is $1 too much?
Well, for us, yes. So we tend to be more premium tight end, and then we've got a couple other cheaper tight ends that we like. Yeah. So we haven't dipped our toes in the Evan Ingram water. My thought on him is he will be on waivers, and if he's really going to be a big part of the game plan, I think we'll have a good idea of that before the season starts, and so we'll be on him at that point. But yeah, I've been disappointed by Ingram. I kept him over Derrick Henry at one point in one of my keeper leagues, and that was a sad decision.
Sad decision. 10
We're
years
waiting,
later.
Greg, for you to pay us $1 to draft him, and then we'll pick him up
Yeah.
on the squad when we get $1 back.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, we're not target. Yeah.
All right. Denver's D goes for $2. You guys are usually $1, but we know how good they are. They're worth $2. All right. Greg, I'm going to ask you. Jamar Gibbs and Bijan Robinson are going $56, $57, $58, sometimes $60. You got any shares of them yet? And are you in on them at that price?
Yeah. And that goes back to what we say, gauging the price early, Greg, is a key in these drafts, right? Within the first, we like kind of sitting in that 5, 6, 7 range because we can get some picks in front of us to see where the pricing is, and then we can nom somebody, having that information. Yeah. We ended up getting Bijan. We do have a share of Bijan, I think, at 51, 52, right?
Nice.
So such a great value. We don't have any Gibbs just because he hasn't gone down there, but we will snatch up the value on those guys when they go in the low 50s. Absolutely. Yeah. We just don't have any Chase yet either. But we'll snatch up the value if early in the draft, if players are not priced up, people aren't spending. We'll take advantage of that. Yeah.
All right, Chris, we get to Las Vegas. Bijan gets thrown out there, or Gibbs gets thrown out there first. What does he go for, you think, in Vegas? $2,500 auction, $1,600 auction?
Yeah, so Gibbs, it'll be 62, 63 for Gibbs. Yeah, and I'm guessing Bijan will be 58, 59. Usually what we see is we'll be doing the online all summer, and you get to Vegas, and anybody who has any buzz whatsoever is going to be $2 to $3 higher than what you think, because everybody's trying to target their players and get them, and all it takes is 2 people, and the price goes way up. So you definitely have to think about your strategy when you get into a live auction. I mean, everyone's different, right? So you have to know where your price points and be like, oh yeah, I'm on that, or wow, this is getting out of hand.
Well, you guys know, I mean, you're in multiple ones out in Las Vegas. They're completely different, right? Like you go get something to eat or have a drink and go back to the next one. It's like, holy shit, this one's different, right?
Way different. They're all different. We do them all day long, and the one that we did at 10 a.m. is different than the 1 p.m. But, we do your live auctions. We've done other competitor auctions. Yours is the best. I mean, you have your own conference room. Yeah. You have a projector with the draft board and beautiful colors with the mins and the maxes and remaining budgets. Yeah. You can bring up the site and see who's left and queue players up. Yeah. That's the only, the technology, you have your own room, you got plenty of beer and food in the back to keep you hydrated and fed along the way.
And very good auctioneers, I'll say. I mean, Kim,
the auctioneers are great. Kim is great. Really Brady's awesome. Yeah. That Greg dude, I don't know about him, but all the other auctioneers are great. But no, we love the auctioneers. They keep it fun. The auction rooms are just so much more animated, and there's just banter and fun, that you have, because, you have the constant back and forth bidding, and the auctioneers do a great job keeping it going and interjecting some humor along the way. So if you haven't done a live auction, head out to Vegas. It's a blast. You can't go wrong.
I think you guys are in mid-season form. You're ready for these auctions. You're ready for Vegas right now. Let's end on this last note. We talked about trends that we're seeing, which are the quarterbacks, of course. I'll give each of you a shot here. Are you seeing any other trends? I mean, the wide receivers, last year you said they were being pushed up too much. I mean, last year the running backs stayed healthy. Are they being pushed up too much? What do you think? I'll give you each one.
Yeah. Wide receivers are being pushed up now, but it's at a lower price point. It's interesting. Okay. That price point, Greg, of say let's say low teens to mid 20s, that there was a bunch of receivers last year. Mm-hmm. That price point is almost gone this year, right? It's a lot between low 20s and mid 30s. That's where everybody's going. Yeah. So it makes it really tough to build your wide receiver room this year. There has been some movement on some of these running backs, like a Ken Walker that started in the low 30s. He's going up in the high 30s, and a Chase Brown, he's into the 40s now. But I think the toughest is this wide receiver. It's not at the high end because there's fewer over 40. Mm-hmm. It's the teen range, low 20 range is slim pickings this year. Yeah. It's all into the 20s and 30s. So that's the trend I'm seeing.
Chris, anything to add final here?
Sure. I mean, the other trend I think we're seeing is those top 5 players are the only ones above 50,
Right.
and they're the only one. And in the past, there would be more like 7 or 8, 9, and you'd have a bunch of people in the high 40s. So there's definitely a kind of a delineation there as far as the really high players, the top 5, you have to pay up for them. And then, it's more gradual as you go down. I'd say running backs, people are keen on running backs this year, so they're paying a little more for running backs in some cases. And then, obviously the quarterbacks and the wide receivers, it's just a question of how you want to build it. It's harder to build, like the strategy we used last year would be harder to employ this year simply because of the price of those mid-range receivers has definitely, like there aren't a lot of $20 receivers. They're all 25 to 30. And so, you have to take that into account and think through how you want to, formulate your strategy.
All right. Well, hopefully we recruited some new auction people. You can see the enthusiasm for auctions. You can see the strategies. You can see the fun. Hey, we're going to be at Caesar's Palace September 9th through the 13th. Come join us there. We're going to be at Circa the first weekend, September 4th and 5th. So come join us. You're going to love the NFFC auctions. And go online, the Online Auction Championship, $15,000 grand prize, $150 entry fee. 9 p.m. Eastern time, we're filling them up every single night. So get in before we max out. So guys, thanks for joining me tonight. Best of luck in all your leagues. I'll see you at Caesar's Palace in a few short weeks. All right.
We'll see you in Vegas, Greg. Thanks for having us on.
All right. And
Appreciate
don't forget,
it.
Thank you, Chris. And don't forget that tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to continue NFFC Champions Podcast Week. Wilson Moy is going to join me. He won the $250,000 grand prize in the 2025 NFFC RotoWire Online Championship. Join me tomorrow on the High Stakes Fantasy Network YouTube channel. Thanks all, and have a great night.
Thank you for joining us on the High Stakes Fantasy Network podcast. To get in the game, go to playnfc.com.